Okay, now we are really back. Welcome back to Dateline New Haven, WNHH FM. I'm Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines on the stories that make our community tick. Well, here's someone who brings a lot of energy into our studio every time he comes and wherever else he goes. Steve Orosco, mixed martial arts impresario and the Republican candidate for the 11th State Senate District this year, going up against one of the Lions of the Senate, Martin Looney. Steve Orosco, welcome back.
Thank you for having me again, Paul.
Great to see you. So how's it been? What's been going on the campaign trail?
Campaign trail has been very busy, a little more busy than I expected. You know, my campaign manager, Chris, has me everywhere. And I'm also spending a lot of time, like, doing very grassroots stuff, like spending time with community leaders in the inner city, both in New Haven and Hamden, and really trying to find out what the problems are. And
your district is part of New Haven and part of Hamden?
Absolutely. Yep.
And what are you finding out? What are you hearing from the grassroots leaders about what the concerns are?
The youth. Everything starts with the youth. You know, these kids have nowhere to go and nothing to do, and that's why violent crime is so high right now, coupled with the failing education system. And you put those two and two together, it's just a disaster waiting to happen.
So what's Senator Orosco looking to do about it?
I'm looking to disrupt the entire district and turn it upside down and really find true solutions to problems. You know, and it's not going to be just legislators that figure this out. I feel like now legislators don't spend time with community leaders like they used to. And community leaders are telling me this. So until legislators literally sit down and problem solve with the community leaders, nothing's ever going to change. It can't just be, let me sit behind a desk and make assumptions of what we need to do and sign legislation, hopefully gets approved and we get funding, and that's it. It doesn't work like that anymore.
Do you want to tell me about some of the folks you've been meeting with and what you heard from them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started shooting a lot of videos, and I've been posting them all over.
I definitely follow you on Instagram. You're very good on Instagram.
Thank you.
A lot of fun.
I appreciate that.
You have a good touch with that one.
You know, I really just want to get the genuine feel from people, because I think every day people that don't live in the inner city don't truly understand what's going on in the inner city because you're not there. You don't.
So
relate.
what would be an example? Tell me about a person you talked to.
Yeah, so I would say Ollie Glass, love him. He is the owner of Hamden Barbershop on Dixwell. Mm-hmm. And he was the first person I shot a video with because I met him at it was a community and police relations event in Hamden that they put on. I don't know if it's like SPCP or CPSP. And I met him. He had a table and he was signing up people to come get haircuts. And we started talking. And his story was amazing. He had one son who plays football. He plays for the Jets. And his other son...
The Jets.
The Jets, yeah. And at the time, we're just talking nonchalantly, and he's on the phone FaceTiming his other son. And I couldn't see his son's face. And when he got off the phone with him, he goes, "Hey, that's my son. He's in the hospital. He just got shot in the neck last week."
Oh, my goodness.
I'm like, oh, my God. I mean... So then I hear these stories. I said, listen, how about I come into the barbershop and do like a barbershop talk and kind of talk about the issues.
Oh, like Bernie Sanders did when he ran for president. He used to do these barbershop talks.
Dude, the best conversations ever in barbershops. We know that. Not that I ever have to go to a barbershop.
I was wondering, Ollie probably didn't try to hit you up for any haircut there. So you went to Ollie's barbershop.
Yeah.
And what happened?
He really focused on the youth. He said, these kids, they're lost. It's like a lost generation right now. You know, they're out there. They all have guns. They're talking about the ops, which is the opposition, and literally.
I never heard that. The ops.
Yeah, they call it the ops, and it's slang for opposition.
And what are the teams opposing each other about? Is it turf? Is it about pride? Is it about criminal activity? What is it?
It's a lot about pride, and that's a lot of problem. It's always been like that in the inner city. Inner city is very ego. It's I have this and you don't. You have that and I don't. It's just the way you're just raised, unfortunately. And it's just these kids are literally now, because of social media, have become consumers and not producers. It's one of the biggest problems in the black community. Instead of innovating, there's constantly consume, buy. I want this,
well, that's
I want
American
that.
culture, too, in general.
Yeah, but
it's
even more below the poverty line because there's nothing to reach for. It's kind of everything's unattainable.
So you did this barbershop video, and was it an Instagram or was it a full length?
Instagram. I mean, I have a full length, but I've been chopping it up in pieces so it gets more engagement. So I have a lot of content to keep on shooting out.
Well, you're ahead of the trends. That's what they're saying, because then Facebook's is doing reels. Instagram does the short ones. Everyone's trying to get the idea that you got to get somebody with an idea at a time.
It's
And actually, what I started following are the shredding guitarists. Have you ever see those?
no.
The reels of the guitarists who do like a 30-second electric guitar solo and shred, and they get millions on those.
Yeah, everyone wants to live this life of at the climax. Our attention spans have unfortunately
It is unfortunate.
dwindled. And it's like the same thing that makes you laugh makes you cry, and that's social media. You love it, but it also is killing our society at the same time.
It is.
Unfortunately.
So when you did Ollie, how did you try to do it in a meaningful way while doing it with that kind of climax social media 30-second limit?
I just asked tough questions. I said, listen, let me ask tough questions because I want people to really understand. When they're talking about things like, these kids are emulating Chicago. They look at Chicago now like it's the new Hollywood, and that's what they're emulating. They want to be that. They think it's cool when it's not cool. Parenting has dwindled drastically. And again, the education system is failing, and there's not enough youth programs. He said that was number one for him. That's the first thing they cut in budgets, unfortunately. Get rid of youth programs.
There are a lot of things this summer. The city's got a 50-page booklet out or a 90-page booklet with like so many, but then people don't know they're around.
Well, that's issue part number 2. Absolutely. It's again, I'll give you another one real quick. I haven't shot with him yet. This kid, Ty. Now, Ty had a basketball tournament 2 weeks ago, and we sponsored it. It was on golf.
We being mixed martial arts?
Yeah, our campaign.
Oh, campaign sponsor.
So it was on Gough Street, which is obviously one of the most violent areas, that park in all of New Haven. And he had just lost one of his closest friends to gun violence. So he did a basketball tournament in his honor. So in talking to him, I found out he also has his own business. It's called 24 Junkies. So if anyone out there needs junk removed, this is the guy. 21 years old, and he literally goes and rents a U-Haul truck every single morning and goes and picks up junk to remove, to make money. He's trying to start a business. Now I'm looking at this kid who not only is he trying to do something good to get out, he also has 2 kids he's with that he's employing that's also getting off the streets. A kid like this has no idea that there's money out there and grants out there for him to maybe to scale his business, so to speak. And I was those are things that inspired me.
How'd you meet him?
I met him, my campaign manager met him because of the basketball tournament. I'm not sure. He had something, I think, on his Instagram, like vendors needed or something like that. And so we reached out. And
one thing you're drawing from this is the need for more youth programs and to get the word out about youth programs.
Absolutely.
Steve Orosco, running for state senate. We've had him on before. He's running the 11th district, which is New Haven and Hamden. Steve's had a very colorful career, including building up a whole mixed martial arts business, not just as a participant in the matches, but he actually has a whole league that's coast to coast and a gym in Milford. Am I right in listening to you when you think about running for public office? Is the part that connects you to people on the ground more interesting than the lawmaking and the policy?
Absolutely. I think lawmaking and policy is failing people now. I think that our politicians have stopped relating to the people and spending time to find real solutions. Listen, I haven't met Martin Looney yet. I will not talk bad about him, but I will say this. Everyone I've spoken to in the inner city, not a single person knew who he was. Now, to me, that sounds crazy because he's been in his seat since 1993. Everyone should know who your state senator is, which means he's not actually taking the time to connect with his people anymore. He's just pushing a pencil and getting legislation approved. And that's just complacency amongst our politicians, which happens over and over and over again, regardless of party affiliation. I say it all the time. If you're a Californian, you should not be voting. If you're a Californian, a Democrat, you shouldn't be voting for Nancy Pelosi anymore. If you are a Republican in Kentucky, you shouldn't be voting for Mitch McConnell. Like, these people need to go because they're kind of unrelatable. They don't campaign anymore. And I'm not saying they don't care, but they're just not passionate about what they do. I'm very passionate. I don't do anything unless my passion is behind it.
Talking to Steve Orosco, tell me about mixed martial arts, because I don't know much about it. When I first heard about it, I thought, is this like worldwide wrestling where they pretend it's a match, but it's really an entertainment show? Yeah. But I get the sense that this is a real sport.
Absolutely, yes.
People train and compete.
Yeah, I remember the first time I watched it. It was 1992 when it started. My father showed. My father loved to fight too. Very strong, very alpha male. First generation from Trinidad, and he loved fighting. So I watched this, and I was actually scared when I watched it the first time Because back then it was no rules, no weight classes. You could, you couldn't eye gouge, but you could basically do anything, right? But
Good thing you
now,
couldn't eye gouge.
you couldn't fish hook. You could like elbow to the groin. Like you could do crazy stuff back then. And for me, that was like too savage. I was like, I could never do that stuff. But I started wrestling at a very early age. And wrestling is really what built me. It's what made me so dedicated and make sacrifices. And that just carried over into into MMA.
So tell me what mixed martial arts is.
Yep. So mixed martial arts is literally all of the combat's skills together. So it's really boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, which is submissions, and arm breaks, things like that. And what's the other one? And Muay Thai, which is like kickboxing, all together. And I love the sport. I'm not a violent person. I don't like to fight per se, but I love the competition.
And it is a real sport. It's not like a show with characters.
It's literally, I think it's number 2. It's number 3 in revenue, I think, behind the NFL and MLB right now.
Wow.
It's huge. The UFC, which was obviously the initiator, the first to market, they just sold a few years ago for $4 billion.
So you transitioned from competing to the business end.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, when I was fighting and I stopped, I still love my sport so much that I said, what can I do to stay in my sport? And I have a very entrepreneurial mind. I went to Albertus. I got my MBA and my MS there. And when I was there in their program,
you could start an MMA MBA.
Yeah. They teach you to be a consultant, to go into a company and find the bottlenecks and the constraints and elevate them and make a company more efficient. And I said, what can I do in my sport to make it better? And at the time, the sport had grown so fast in such a short period of time.
You're talking the
MMA.
But what time?
What's that?
What years?
We're talking about 20, not even 20 years. We're talking when I started. So about 20 years. Mm-hmm. 20 years. It just evolved where now, back in the day, it was like a jiu-jitsu guy versus a boxer. It wasn't multifaceted. Where now everybody knows everything. And
so what was your role? Did you sponsor tournaments? You now have a gym.
Yep.
So what did you bring that you did differently to find a business niche?
Yeah, the crowd. It's all about the platform and how you present it. So MMA came from that NASCAR grassroots tap out T-shirts, Bud Lights, $30 ticket crowd. It was very savage in the beginning. Whereas boxing has centuries of history and build up, and it came from prize fighting, people with money in the first place. So how do I get the fur coat crowd and the black tie crowd and the more extravagant people to come watch MMA live? So I package it in a way where it's black tie and gown only, red carpet, it's full dinner, like eating filet and salmon, 4-course meal with a cage in the middle. So it's set up like a wedding with 30 tables.
What's a cage?
So there's an octagon like the UFC. So I use a hexagon, so it's six sides, and then it's all gated around.
And what's in it?
And then there's the canvas, and that's where you fight.
Oh, so you're eating that filet, eating that fish and that steak while you're watching the fight.
Exactly, while you're watching. So, people would always come like, oh, man, this looks like...
How did you convince all those people in tuxedos and gowns to come?
That's a good question. So I started this...
I would have no idea how to do that.
I started this in Los Angeles, and what I would do is I would honor someone who made a significant impact in the sports, and whether it's martial arts or MMA or film. So I would literally honor people. So I've honored, Steven Seagal, Mel Gibson, Lou Ferrigno, Dolph Lundgren, Chuck Liddell. I've had literally every A-lister come to my event in Los Angeles because I'm the only person that puts MMA on a platform like that instead of your typical big arena, 10,000 fans.
And am I correct to assume that it's not everyone who's rich? It's some people who like to dress up because they're just middle class and it feels special to rent that tuxedo or that gown.
Exactly. Very valid point.
Well, that's good marketing because there's a lot more of those people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there are. They are. Everyone wants a night out. Everybody wants it. Especially now. I don't know. COVID kind of zapped some things. I just had a show May 19th in LA. And the energy felt so different in California, like post-COVID. Like people are still a little hesitant to really go out.
This week, people are hesitant because of this new subvariant, but I kind of feel like most of the country, they did a poll that only 1% of the country said COVID was a major issue for them now.
Good. And I'm going to try to do a show here in Connecticut in October, leading up to the election. Get all the eyes on Connecticut.
All right, Steve Orosco. Now, you were talking about something before on the air that I found really interesting. You talked about the experience of going door to door, which you like,
Yep.
and the experience of having to get a lot of people give you small contributions to get to the Citizens Election Program, meaning public financing match, so you have enough money to get your message out, and you don't like that part. You feel like that's disingenuous as opposed to the genuine feeling of talking to someone relating to them. Like you were really excited when you tell me about the barber and the and Ty.
Yeah.
So tell me, for our listeners, about that conflicting feeling you have when you knock on a door and why.
Yeah, I'm a very relationship-based person. Like, even when I was in finance, for people who don't know, I worked on Wall Street. I majored in finance and marketing at Pace University. So I worked for Charles Schwab. And the one thing I hated about my job was the cold calls, and setting the appointments. What I loved was actually going to the person's home and interacting with them and building that relationship. But I was never the guy to ask for money on day one. I kind of wanted to mold it and make sure we connected and build that long-term relationship. And the same thing goes with door knocking. I love door knocking and I love talking to people because at the end of the day, every single person has the same exact issues in the community. It doesn't matter what party you are. But I do hate knocking on the door and with my form, hey, can I get your signature? And I need at least $5 donation because if I get 300 signatures and raise 17 grand, the state will give me over $100,000 for my campaign. And it just feels very disingenuous where I don't feel like if I'm the person opening the door, it seems like I'm only knocking on the door for money and I don't actually care about what the person's needs are. And I don't like that. And something that I think I have to get over. But I don't mind.
Well, how do you deal with that?
I just do it. And I hate it.
Now, truth is, you could just say, I won't get the money.
It's also true.
Why not go for the match?
I could be like...
You could be your competitor. You don't want to lose.
I don't want to lose. I'm not in this to lose. And in all honesty, I really think New Haven needs a change. I have not heard a single person say that they're completely content with the way New Haven has been run. So I just think a complete overhaul or a complete paradigm shift needs to happen. And, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you should all want the same thing for your community. I know I do. I was a moderate Democrat for a very long time. I'm just now more conservative with age. I'm now a Republican.
Happens to most people.
Yeah, I'm Republican now, and I'll probably never go back. Very conservative mindset. And it's funny the hate that I will get because I have an R next to my name.
Well, people are mad about Republicans. Like, do you ever hear about January 6th? Or do you have feelings about that when you read those? We're also hearing, like, what's your take on that? They're saying about the Republican Party being kind of wacko, extremist, mob.
See, this is my biggest problem. I think that we are allowing both Democrats and Republicans, the far 10% on each side of the spectrum, to dictate the narrative of this country. Like, people should not be putting every Republican in this January 6th far right box.
Right.
And Republicans should not be putting all Democrats in this radical left riot box. That's just not fair. But people are so fueled by hate because they see it over and over and over that you just kind of succumb to it. And I'm like you, probably just like you. I'm in the middle. I lean left. I lean right. I just lean a lot more right now. And I've never disagreed with someone to the fullest when I meet with them in person. We're always able to compromise, but we're allowed.
Well, that's one thing I actually feel about our politics. The same people who on a poll will hate each other and be completely different after 5 minutes can figure out how you could work out a problem, what parts you agree with. Like, I actually thought they did that with the gun bill. I thought Senator Cronin and Senator Murphy said there are a whole bunch of things we like we can't get.
Yep.
There are a whole bunch of things we agree with about mental health and the boyfriend loophole and all that, and they just did it. I kind of saw that as a model for how you could govern.
And that's how it should be. A great example was when I went to this Hamden event that I just told you about, the police and community relations. I had met Robin Porter for the
Who's
first
a state rep,
who I had met for the first time, and we had so many laughs together, regardless of party. And then I met another young kid, Daniel Hunt, in Hamden.
I know Daniel.
Love that kid too. I took him to lunch the other day, and it's funny because I was kind of breaking his stones. I'm like, are you sure you're not a conservative? Because you kind of sound a little conservative right now. Because he's all about public safety and God and hard work, and he really wants better for the community. And I'm like, there's no reason why we can't work together, But for some reason, the public, I feel like, doesn't allow it. Maybe it's maybe I'm being ignorant. Maybe it's different behind closed doors. Like we might agree right now and be very cool, but then behind closed doors, like this
Was
switch.
it, I think what year it was? I think it was 2018, if I'm not mistaken. The legislative Democratic Republic leaders, Joelle, Martin Looney, Themis Clarities, and Len Fasano, really did do a bipartisan budget. That was genuinely, but it was once.
Yeah,
the one I
once.
remember, but it was kind of worked.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the other elections? Like you talk about you're a member of Republican 2.0. Before I let you go, I want you to tell me what that's all about. When you look at Steve has the most active social media of any candidate in New Haven, and pretty well put together Instagram, I would argue. It's kind of fun. He's got a lot of memes, a lot of video. I always check it. The theme I'm picking up now is you want to bill yourself as Republican 2.0.
Yeah.
Now, that's been described as a lot of different things. Like the Trump people talk about rhinos. They're not for old school Republicans who they think aren't tough enough on immigration or not sticking enough for like white people getting left behind or whatever. And then you got others who talk about the old Republican Party that could compromise more. What do you mean by 2.0?
To me, the Republican Party, unfortunately, has not evolved with the times. You know, we're so focused on the economy and legislation. I think that they have forgotten that a huge part of our country cares about social issues, and that's why they vote. And there comes a point where we need to be a little more inclusive. And I'll give you a great example. Some people might not like this. You know, I went to a state central dinner a couple months ago. I've only been to one. And I walk in this room, and there's, there's about 80 people in the room, all different politicians from across the state. And there was only maybe 2 or 3 minorities. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy, because I know a lot of minorities are Republicans, but why aren't they don't do a good job at recruiting minorities. They don't do a good job at recruiting women, and it gives it a bad look. And Democrats really do a great job at making sure everything's diversified. And I just think the Republican platform is better overall.
I've been thinking about that lately for 2 reasons. I think both parties are shooting themselves in the foot with those constituencies, because the 2020 election showed that the Republican Party's positions are much more popular, especially with Latinos.
Yeah.
But black males as well.
Yeah.
Much more than both parties thought.
Yep.
So certain Republicans run in a way that tries to drive people away, but they're still voting for him. I mean, Rio Grande in Texas gone completely conservative Republican among Latino votes. Southern Florida, Trump increased his vote with minorities. But the Republican Party, as you mentioned, presents itself in a way that drives people away. And the Democrats, too, seem to be taking positions that drive that constituency away. And I can't quite figure it out.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's because maybe individual candidates' short-term fortunes, that's what they run about when they run an election. They don't think about the long-term track of their party. So maybe you can get Trump in and get reelected this time, but maybe you'll do it in a way to drive people away. But maybe you could win with that bigger tent and win more elections. I don't know.
Yeah. I always say the pendulum always swings, right? Because let me think real quick. Bush to Clinton, Clinton back to Bush, Bush to Obama, Obama to Trump, Trump to Biden. So every election, it's a swing. It goes Democrat, Republican, because no one is ever content in this country. Everyone's always searching for more and more and more. And,
well, except for hitting people up for money, you're having fun.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
How about if you have to wear black tie and a gown to vote for Steve Orosco?
Oh. No, I wouldn't make you guys do that. I would, but I would appreciate it.
I tried wearing a tux when it was hand down. I went someplace and it ripped on the bottom the whole time. I had to go home.
Oh, no.
I'm not big on tuxes.
Yeah, I know.
But I know people like them. Steve Orosco, what a place. So how people find out about your campaign?
Yeah, so my website, steveorosco.com. And then obviously my Instagram is Steve Orosco. And I do have Orosco for Senate as well on Instagram.
All right. Not hard to find.
Not hard to find.
Steve Orosco, thanks for coming back. I hope you come back again. And we're going to do a debate in the fall. And thanks everyone for checking in. Thanks Harry Drost for working the controls. We're going to take it out, the Afro-Semitic Experience, performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH, New Haven's home for community radio.
I'm New Haven Health Director Marissa Bond. If you or your family have COVID-19 symptoms or think you were exposed to someone with COVID, quarantine, stay home, and get tested on day 5 if possible. If you have COVID, isolate, wear a mask, vaccinate, get boosted